Thanks for joining everyone and really appreciate you connecting in. We're going to jump in now. We're going to be talking about this idea right here, turning your tech stack into profit. It's hard, right? Being an MSP is hard, and scaling it up is hard, and continuing it to get it to go where you want it to go is hard. How many of you have been, give me a number. How many years has your MSP been in business? Use chat and let me know. I want to know like how many brand new MSPs are on, how many stalwarts are on. Give me a good idea here. So we've got, okay, so a 10-year MSP, a 23, some fives, some eights, some threes. Okay, so we're really kind of all over the place here, which is super cool because Bill, one of the things I've learned is that, the world of MSP drastically changes year in and year out. And we've seen that in the past, really from 2018 up until today. I think we've seen more evolution year to year than ever before in the MSP space. What do you think?
Absolutely. I would say that MSPs are getting a lot smarter. They have a lot more, there's a lot more information that's available. It's much more well-defined space now. And I think we've seen over the last decade or so, the vendor community as well kind of grow and evolve with it, which also helped the MSP space grow and evolve. We've seen a lot more acquisitions and consolidations and vendors like trying to put together what I would consider coming from the enterprise space, more of like enterprise kind of offerings that slot into the MSP sort of space and allow them to do their jobs a lot better and a lot more efficiently.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I look at all of that as opportunity waiting in the wings for sure. Just way of getting introduced. Hey, I'm Wes Spencer, and I am a super, super big fan of MSPs and love helping all of you in your journey in cyber. I am a cyber nerd. I've been a cyber nerd my whole career. Spent time at a bank, helping grow that cyber program, built a company with some others called Perch. Now am working with CyberFox and have loved the CyberFox crew. We're amazing people building amazing products and helping MSPs in their journey. So really glad to be with y'all today, Bill.
Dude, I'm so jealous. You have a shirt with your name on
I took
it.
it once and threw it away. My wife said, "You're throwing that in the trash can. Never again."
Dude, that's epic. So my name is Bill Morgan. I am the Director of Technical Sales Enablement at CyberFox, which just means any of the engineering team works with me. I started working on the help desk way back when in the late 90s at Ecker Corporation. So I've been doing this like 25 plus years. I was a military consultant for a lot of the branches of the military. I've worked Veterans Affairs, I've worked at the Pentagon, I've worked at Army Transportation, USARC, you name it, PMTIS. So I've kind of been all over. I'm a former military vet, so I drove tanks. So any other tankers, armor crewmen out there, woohoo! And I spent almost spent west there. I spent a lot of time at ConnectWise, so a decade over there building out the engineering teams and things like that for that crew. So yeah, I've been in the MSP space for about 15 years of my 25 plus years in IT, and I have to say it's a cool, friendly, awesome community, man. It's just a great bunch of people to be around.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Couldn't agree more with that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm committed the rest of my career working with MSPs because of that right there. Absolutely love that. See a couple of folks that have raised your hand on chat. I don't know if you're just clicking around or if you have a question or a comment, but if I see the hand up, I'll definitely mention it. So Alex and Balaji, if y'all got anything to say, feel free to jump in. I don't know if you'll be able to join onto audio or anything, but pop something in the chat if you got a question and happy to jump in. So let's start with this icebreaker before we go any further. I want to ask this question to the group. What is your biggest challenge or obstacle in front of you when it comes to what we're talking about today? Getting lift in your cybersecurity sales program, getting alignment in your services that are being offered. Like, what's your biggest challenge right now? It could be anything like getting my people to understand it, getting my clients to care, finding out how to price and package, how to deal with like ankle biters coming in and undercutting me. I'd love to know what questions you have. So Faraz is checking in how to package the stacks and price it properly. Yeah, right on. So we'll talk about that. Elizabeth checking in, making clients understand the value and the power of tools. Yeah, for sure, Elizabeth. That's of course, it's huge. Just Jason Smith just starting. Congrats, man. Welcome to the world, man. MSP space is awesome. And I always say we need one more. That's a wonderful thing. Power to you. Glad you're with us and you with a whole crew of people, us and audience included. We're here to help you in that journey. Austin, alignment. Ooh, I got some good stuff on alignment today, Austin. So stay tuned. We're gonna jump into that. And then Mark, jumping into a new tool without certainty that customers will buy in. Okay. So this is good stuff. And we really want to jump in and hone in on all these things. I think one of the best ways for us to start is really to understand the default positioning of our clients. Like, so I care about cyber, right? I go read cyber news, I read cyber books, I go to cyber conferences, I care about cyber. I talk to my other nerd friends about all this cool stuff, not just cyber, but like, all things IT. I care. I'm interested in it. It's always fun. But what we have to realize is we're starting at a different stage and a different vantage point than where our clients often do, or they don't care about this stuff. Like it doesn't matter to them. In fact, many of them, if you were to get them to be dead honest, they would say, you know what? Not only do I not care about it, I pay you as the MSP so that I don't have to care about it. I pay you to make that problem go away. It's no different than saying, I don't care about gas and how the fuel economy works. I care about going to the gas station, putting gas in my car, paying for that gas, and now I can drive my car. That's how they look at the services we provide. This is where they start. And there's nothing wrong with the client positioning on this. We just have to understand this is the default mode. Bill, have you seen the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking of another analogy to kind of go with this slide was, and what it brings me back to is the concept and idea of insurance, right? You don't really, you hate insurance, you hate paying for insurance, but you would absolutely not go without insurance just in case something happens. So like, and I think sometimes if we can use some fundamentally simple analogies to help our clients understand how critically important some of the stuff is. Like this is your ultimate insurance policy against what could potentially be disastrous for your organization, just like a car accident could potentially be disastrous for your family. And
Right.
so, I don't want to say that those things are equally critical, but it could end up with a business closure and things like that. So, but the concept is there of you want to kind of build this out as like this is our way of helping you ensure that the vitality and the continued running of your business is insured versus what potentially could happen.
Yeah, it's that language of risk, right? And risk management, which is really the crux and core about what they care about, which is you led perfectly into what I was going to say is that what our clients do care about, and there's no question about this, they care about the things that are going to impact their ability to do business. I'm a business owner. I think about this all the time. What are the things that are going to cause me to not be able to do business? What could be the inhibitions? I just bought some property recently and working through like, oh no, what are the problems that we're going to run into with this property? How do we make sure we get the tenant in? And these are the things we care about. So one thing that's important is that we level set is this we need to understand the default positioning of the client, which is look, I don't care about this stuff. That's your job, not mine. But what I will listen to is anything that could impact our business. And here's the problem that we have is you look at the technology landscape today. So this comes from my friends at Optiv, and now this is like the enterprise cybersecurity map, right? So this would be most of these tools would not play down market. But the reason that you can't recognize a single logo is because I made it that way. I was like, let's squeeze this entire map in that normally would be like a 10-foot tall map into one small little screen. And the challenge that we have today is we do not have a lack of tools. We don't have a lack of processes. We don't have a lack of methodology. What we have is a whole bunch of raw materials that to a client that doesn't care about this stuff, they don't want to buy tools from you. They're not buying tools. They're buying outcomes. And if we're leading in with, oh, well, I have CyberFox. Hey, look, CyberFox is a phenomenal dude. Auto elevate, hard to beat us. Probably not possible to beat us. Okay, great. But like that's not what they're buying. What they're buying is the peace of mind and the risk that we're managing that comes with this. And so we're never going to see this world where like, oh, it's the tools that they care most about. Very rarely does that happen. But as technologists, we want to sell tools, right? And yes, there is, Alex, there is a recording. So no worries on your signal. And I'm sorry to hear that, but yes, it is fully recorded. Bill, you remember these days better than me because I wasn't in the IT space back then. I think, well, in the MSP space back then, I was at a bank at this year. But this was the world in 2012 where, you're probably got your Kaseya or your ConnectWise. You pick the tool. You're probably doing some finance with QuickBooks. You got your like Symantec, and you are good to go, baby. You remember these days and how awesome they were?
Oh, bro, it was so simple back then. You'd like put a couple key things together and you were off to the races. I got an RMM, I got a help desk ticketing tool. Every system has to go out with AV, right? And then as long as we had that, we were jazzing, man. We had our accounting package. It was good to go. Unfortunately, man, the world has changed.
It has changed, right? And Morgan checking in, being like, haha, yes, like we remember this day and age. We remember what life was like when we just had a very simplistic understanding. Well, fast forward to today, and this might be what the stack looks like. Now, granted, you're not going to have this many tools in the stack, and this is not representative of every vendor. Don't get mad at me if I left someone out. I guarantee you I left some out, right? But I asked an MSP friend of mine, hey, would you, from your perspective, go pop in a whole bunch of the tools you use? And some of these tools are like in their stack. Some of these tools they have the ability to sell if they need them. It's a mixture, right? But welcome to 2025. Welcome to this world where we have to do more than we've ever done before. The client demands it. Automation requires it to be efficient. We see cybersecurity regulations and insurance that are pushing the needle. We also just know there's some of these things I need the client to do, or some of these things that I need to do to be able to manage and work at scale. And so there's really two takes we can take out of this. One is this is aggravating, this is stupid, I hate this way the world's gone, I give up and I'm done. But the entrepreneur in me, Bill, looks at this and sees opportunity. Not because I can go sell every one of these tools, but like we've said forever, there's too many ankle biters that are here that are just undercutting my services and saying I can do the same thing at half the price. And one of the things I see here out of all this is doing MSP today is complex. We've raised the bar significantly. So, like Jason Smith checking in earlier saying he's just starting out, welcome to the club. And Jason would probably be the first to agree. Starting an MSP today is hard because there's a lot more burden to do the right thing for the client. And I just think that makes it even more valuable to be an MSP. So yeah, it's more complex today, but it gives us some amount of protection to say we're valuable in the services to our clients. Bill, what do you take out of all this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key point that you said at the end, Wes, was the service, right? It back in 2012, 2010, even before that, the service was very simple. I think we went out and we said, "Hey, do you need somebody to take care of your computers? We can do that." And then ultimately over time, though, it's like, well, we need to take care of the network, and then we need to start worrying more about security, and then some guy somewhere came out with a backup service that he's going to offer to back up and restore all their stuff. And then so the services literally just started to evolve over time. And now, like for the guy stepping into it today, now you have to contend with everybody out there offering a huge stack of services. And at the end of the day, one of the other things that we have to consider too is the level of like what is your differentiator from somebody else. And some people use technology to be the differentiator, and some people it's the service, right? And others it's like, well, we're all kind of doing the same thing. What makes you want to go with me versus you? And then so how do I differentiate myself from other MSPs that are doing this all this stuff in the same way that I am? Like what's my way to stand out?
So let's chase that, Bill. I love that comment. You nailed it. So let's chase Bill's comment here. Got a question and a challenge for y'all listening today. Go over to chat in Zoom. If you've been multitasking but listening on, switch back over to me. I want to ask you this question. What is the differentiator for your MSP compared to your competitors? And you're not allowed to say customer service because we all are going to want to say our customer service is the best. So, what is it that makes you different? What is your big advantage that you have that your clients, that your competitors don't have? So, for Oz checking in, loyalty, love that, love that, love that, love that. So, this commitment to say, I'm going to be there for you. I got your back, right? I love that. Oh, Brian, good one. Knowing their business. So, spending the time to be a student of our business. I love that.
Yeah.
Wesley, oh, go ahead, Bill.
So yeah, I was just thinking like when you understand the industry of the people that you're supporting, so there are MSPs out there that you would say, right, are generalists, right, Wes? And then
Hmm.
so but there's like if you understand the legal space, then you can not only be a technology partner for those customers that use your services, but now you can also kind of you can be a business partner. I understand how your business operates. I understand the tools and technology you need. I understand the processes you have to go through, and I can help tailor services that meet those specific needs. Whereas if I were to come in there, I don't know anything about lawyers, that would be it would be a wreck. You know what I mean? I wouldn't even know what to do.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So oh, and let me follow some of the others. And thank you, Wesley, for telling me what TVOR is. So time value of responsiveness, love it. Trust and tribal knowledge, been there for a long time. We know the problems to solve. We know where the barriers, the bodies are buried, all that good stuff. Don, 35 plus years of IT expertise, love that. Paul, solving problems because in their business with technology solutions, love it. Bob, we focus on teaming as opposed to just focusing on their computers. We provide office hours on site. Love it, love it, love it. So these are good things. I encourage all of you to go learn from one another and take these things that Bill was jumping into, because at the end of the day, I think why this is so important is we got to really think about this. It's not the tools. And we care about the tools because we're technologists, but I always say no one cares about your tools, bro. Like they don't. So this is kind of where we're at today, right? And if we're not careful, it just feels like a messy mess, right? This is how we feel like what we offer to the clients is like, I got all this stuff and I'd like for you to buy this stuff. And by the way, I need you to buy this stuff because I signed up, I'll be honest, for a 1 year agreement with this vendor for a discount. And now I got to go fill the demand. I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes. I'm just saying that's the world that sometimes we're in. I'm not accusing anyone here of that. I'm just saying it feels like a mess. It feels like we have junk everywhere and we could sell this and maybe we could sell that and maybe you need this and maybe you don't need that. And even worse, we end up sort of coming to them and we start saying things like, you know what? Well, welcome. And, what would you like? It's almost like coming to a restaurant and the waiter hands us a menu and they say, what would you like to order today? What feels good to you? And we come to our clients in this manner and we say, welcome, we do all things IT and all things security. What would you like? What can we do for you? And all of a sudden we put them in the driver's seat. We all know what we want is this. We want clean, organized service delivery. We want clean, organized pricing and packaging. We want clean, organized client experience. This is what we want. These are the outcomes that we want to convey. It's just hard when we're in an ecosystem like this. It's hard when we have all these things we can do and the client doesn't necessarily know what they need or want. And that's where the struggle exists. That's why we have 53 people on here. And I guarantee we'll have another 100 extras that'll listen to this later because this is a challenge, right? And Bob saying, I feel seen probably on that comment I made of I bought all this stuff on a discount. Now I got to go sell it, right? So just understand you didn't do anything wrong. This is just the world that we're in today. So we can kind of look at it like this. I got all these raw materials. I got these vendor things. I got these tools. I got these services. I got all this stuff that I could do. The client doesn't buy that from you. If you're selling raw materials like this, what is your value? Why is this useful? It's general, unless you're a VAR or you're doing some type of co-managed selling where you are offering some that's different. But if your service delivery is offered like this, the client is going to come to you and say, I'm not sure exactly why I'm paying you because what I want is that. What I want is the experience, the outcome, the fully finished good and product that honestly, you know what? If you gave a professional this and you gave me this, I am not going to come out with the same level of cake that they're going to come out with. Because it's not just the tools that they have, but the knowledge that comes into it that makes it valuable. Years ago, I was reading this cartoon of somebody that got mad that this guy came, they called him into this factory because they couldn't figure out how to fix this thing. The guy walks up, and they call him this world-renowned expert. He comes in, and he takes one look at this complex machine, and he pulls out a wrench, and he just turns one little knob. And he goes, that'll be 1,500 bucks. And the guy goes, what? You're charging me $1,500 to turn the wrench? I could have done that. And he said, no, that's free. He said, you paid $1,500 for my knowledge to come in here and fix it right away so that you didn't have hours of downtime that were going to cost you $1 million. And the client was like, I never thought of it that way. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense. I'm happy to pay it now because he understood, just reframed. And this is who you are as an MSP. You're not just bringing raw materials, you're bringing the finished good, right? And so I'd love to hear from the audience, how good are we at that? How good are we at truly coming in and delivering a finished good? Bill, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I hear this more times than I want to admit, and it's like I need to go sell this to my client. I need to go sell this to my client. Well, I got this tool, I need to go sell that to my client. So if my client likes it, and that I think that's where we kind of go a little bit sideways. I think the idea here, especially when we try to explain it to them, I can explain to you, and I think we can all get the picture of a delicious, fluffy, just sumptuous chocolate cake. Like I know what a chocolate cake is, but if I have to sit down and start explaining all of the ingredients and how to put them together and all of the measurements for how to create that awesome chocolate cake, in about 5 minutes, everybody here would be glazed eyes. They would just be gone. And I think that's a lot of times what we end up doing with our customers is we sit down and we explain the minutia and the details, and we give them the ability to start opting out of things that they just don't understand, and we can't explain clearly to them, right? And I think that's one of our biggest challenges is we need to be selling the chocolate cake and not the recipe and the ingredients and the shopping list in order to create the cake. Because as soon as you do that, it's one thing, we always like to say that we are the experts, right? Except when a customer hires us and then they don't understand or want to buy what we're selling, then all of a sudden they are the expert. That's about it's about as frustrating as it can get right
A hu-
there.
100%, 100%. So I hope that kind of gets us on the playing field of like what we're really talking through and what we're trying to kind of address here. So let's move on a little bit further and let's dive into this because we are going to get really practical today. And Wesley says, I want to slice that cake. I do too. So thanks for saying that. Yeah, great comments coming back from folks. So here's a starting point. Before we get into pricing and packaging mechanics, which we're going to get into some of that too. I just want to start with a way to start simplifying all this. So this right here that you see comes from a friend of mine. This comes from Sunil Yu. He wrote a book. I used to have it right here on my desk. I think I moved it recently. Yeah, it's not here anymore. I was going to show it to you, but it's called the Cyber Defense Matrix. So if you want to see more about this, there's actually a book for it. I make no money from it or anything like that. It's just a great book. The cyberdefensematrix.com is what it is. And what Sunil did was he basically said, we have stack problems. We have confusion. You go into the conference area and you have a million vendors all talking to you about a million different things. And what do we really need? What's really important for us? What's critical in what we need? And sometimes we don't know. And vendors are confusing when they use all these buzzwordy titles and sounds. We just look at it like, man, I just don't know. I don't know exactly what it is that I need. Okay, well, I hear you. I get that. That makes sense. So one of the things that this can do for you is really be a thought exercise to start to say, where might I have overlap? Where might I have some problems in my service delivery? And where might I have gaps I can work on? So the way this works, if you've never seen the NIST cybersecurity framework, it's from the U.S. government. They kind of built out a way to look at a blueprint for security. And what Sunil did is he took on the very top, he took the 5 big domains of the cyber defense matrix. And we don't have time to talk about this today. If y'all want to do another session one day on the cyber defense matrix, we could do another webinar at some point. Just let us know in the CyberFox in the comments down below. We'd be happy to do that one day. But then over here on the left side, he kind of put those areas that we have to focus on that the CSF talks about. And so then he says, now I have a matrix that I can begin to map out what I offer from a security perspective, regardless of pricing. We'll get to that in a minute. Now I have a way that I can start to kind of focus on what I need. So let me give you an example. Let's say I have a firewall. Well, a firewall is a network device, and it primarily is a protect function. So it's going to go here. Let's say that I have auto elevate, right? So auto elevate is really looking at the application level. It runs at the device level, but it's looking at applications and it's looking at what permissions that they have. So we really kind of play heavily in that protect function. Now we bleed a little bit into identify because we're going to give you visibility into some of that. So there's other things that we can do, but you see how we can start to take this and say, whoa, for the first time in my life, I can start mapping things out. I can start really building this out in a way that I want. So what I want y'all to do, if you're watching this today, I want you to get the recording later, bring your teams into a lunch and learn, pay for the lunch because be that good leader, okay? And then I want you to pause right here and answer these questions. I want you to say, let's do a self audit. What are the non-negotiables that we know need to go into the stack? Not because we think they're good, but because we know they're good. And why do we know that they're good? What tools are nice to have versus must have? And this is a hard question. You're going to get some arguments because you're going to have some team members say, well, that's a must have. And you say, why? And they say, because I can't operate without it. And I have to go back to a manual process. Okay, but does that fit the criteria of a must have? So you're going to have to define what does a must have mean. For me, a must have is going to be things like they meet a regulatory requirement, they meet a basic level security requirement that if we don't have it, we fall below the security poverty line, so to speak. So you want to do that, and then what you're going to do is you're going to use that cyber defense matrix that I just showed you, and you're going to start to look for gaps. And you're going to start to say, what are the things that we're missing that we really need to have? And don't hear me just say it's all vendor names. It could be configurations. It could be things you do in Azure. It could be group policy kinds of things. It could be configurations. It could be a lot of other things. It's not just sticking vendors in. It's what is in the encompassing delivery of what we have. And then you can finally start to say, what services do we provide that maybe the client never even sees, but we need to make sure we've considered it and we've bundled it into our margins. Because, Bill, if there's one thing I know, an MSP gets really ambitious about offering best of service, all this good ish, and then they realize that they can't make a penny on it because they didn't price it correctly. And now they're in trouble because now they're offering something that's actually costing them money rather than making them money. What are your thoughts here, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a tendency as technologists to focus on a lot of the different tools and the functions of those tools and like, ooh, that's really cool. We love the shiny objects, right? So I think one of the key things to do is to we mentioned about NIST and 800-171, and there's some other best practice frameworks that are out there. But a great piece of advice that I heard somebody give a long time ago was having that framework to compare against was absolutely like it was completely transformative because it allowed them to put the framework up, even if you were to draw it out, but put the framework up and virtually and just look at what tools, technology. I always look at three things: people, process, and technology. You need the right people. You need to work on implementing the best process, and then you use technology to support the first two. A
Mm,
lot of people go about it backwards and they find a piece of technology and then they basically take the whatever the limit of that technology is, that becomes the process that they implement and the people that they use to do it. So you always want to try to find the first, want to get the first two right, and then you find technology that supports that. And
bingo.
then you can take that and apply it up against a lattice work or a framework of what should be done. That will help you identify where your gaps are. What do I need to fill that gap with the right people? Do I fill that gap with process? Do I fill that gap with technology? And then if it is technology, then you can go out and figure out what solution it is that you need to fill that particular need, right? And that can help us from over purchasing, getting into too many tool sets, and getting into tools that have a lot of overlapping functionality, and we're not using the majority of what that particular tool does. Most people only use about 20 or 30% of what the tool's capabilities are. And what we want to look at is how can I get that capability up to 80 to 90% of what your tool's capable of that I'm actually utilizing. So framework, people, process, technology, put it against a framework to identify your gaps, and then figure out what it is you need to support that, whether it is the right process people or getting the right technology in place to fill the gaps in.
Loved it. So that's a masterclass right there. You just heard a 7 minute, 5 minute, whatever that was, masterclass TED talk on that's exactly what we're doing here. And that's how you approach it. And I love that you went to that people, process, and technology because that's one of the things that the cyber defense matrix also contains is what Bill just mentioned is to say some things people have to do. Some things we people could do, but we could automate it away. But it's much more about what's the function and the process and the knowledge there and how to solve it versus just what Bill said. Don't rush to the tool. When you rush to the tool, you're misunderstanding of what we need. Man, that was awesome. So So years ago, Bill, we did a family trip out to Colorado. Had a wonderful time. I don't know if anyone knows where this is. I'm going to hold back. Pop in comments if you know what you're looking at right here, what this place is called. First one that answers it wins I don't know, something nice from Bill, maybe a cigar from Bill or something. Ah, Balaji got it. Yeah. So Royal Gorge. So this is the Royal Gorge in Colorado, and it's really cool. It's this footbridge that you get to walk across. I think it's like the longest footbridge in the world or some crazy thing like that. It doesn't look all that impressive here, but when you're there, trust me, it's pretty gnarly. And one of the things that I love to show on this is it bridged a gap, right? And one of the things that we have to be constantly vigilant on is what gaps do we have? What gaps do we as an MSP have? Could be gaps in our service delivery, could be gaps in our offerings, could be gaps in how we communicate, but also what gaps do our clients have? Because remember what we said at the beginning, they don't care about what you sell, they care about the outcomes that come with it. And one of the ways to understand the outcomes is to understand what are the gaps that they have and understand what those gaps are and what we should be doing about it, right? It's the same way, imagine you're a financial planner. Last time you met with your financial planner, they probably, maybe imagine the first time they say, hey, before I like offer you anything, I want to understand where you're at. So I want to take some time to sit down and understand your finances and your budget. Are you buried in credit card debt and you just buy a brand new Corvette that you can't afford? Or are you living very conservatively and you're paying everything off on time? Okay, well, based on the gaps that we've identified, that's going to help us build a financial plan that's right for you. Well, that's very much how a risk-based conversation should go. Now, I know that sounds tricky because the fear of that is, and you might be thinking of when I just said this, Wes, that sounds good, but it's bad because now what you're telling me is I got to one-off sell everybody. But that's not what we're saying. What we are saying is we have to identify gaps, but what we can do is we can actually offer to someone a way that we can come back and say, here's a comprehensive security solution that addresses your gaps, but is actually standardized on our end. I'll give you an example of this. So y'all are welcome to have a copy of this. You're welcome to screenshot it. Just I always say where this came from. This came from a very good friend of mine. His name is Andrew Zaccoli. He is the CISO over at a very awesome MSP and MSSP called Lockstep. And so this is where it came from. I'm just a big believer in thanking the people that give me the things I've got. And what Andrew did, he actually came up to me one time. I was at DattoCon. He's like, Wes, you got a minute? I'm like, yeah. He said, I want to show you something I've been building. He goes, after I heard you talk about the cyber defense matrix, it really opened my mind up. He said, I spent time doing what I asked y'all to do. He said, I went and I mapped out everything we have. And so it's not just tools, it's processes, it's overall delivery mechanics. We put everything they have into his own cyber defense matrix, what you see here. And what he did was he showed kind of he has these light greens are like the things that these are just foundational things. Their MSP sells a bit more of a premium plan, and we're going to get into my thoughts on how you can offer all this in a minute. And then they also have an as needed. And those as needed are for things like maybe banks. They had a lot of banks that they worked with, and so their need to offer something a little above and beyond for a specific client was we can bring these things in as needed. And he said, you know what I started to do? He said, I actually started to use this in my sales conversations. This right here, I would slide this over to him as we're talking. He said, look, I know that this is gobbledygook for you. I know it's Greek. I totally get it. But what I want you to see out of this is all things that the federal government says good cybersecurity should be doing. This is a good framework. And I want you to know what we've done is we've mapped in all the requirements and things that we have into this. Now, I know you just said, Miss Client, that you feel like we're expensive. We are expensive. But one of the things we want you to know is that we are decidedly different from the guy down the street that would love to take our business at half the cost because he's doing less than half of the things that you need. I don't need you to understand every single thing in here. I would never waste your time and walk through every little detail. If you got a question on one, I'll be happy to answer it. But I just want you to know when we offer you service, it is best of breed. And the reason we're doing best of breed is because we know it's required to make sure that we're keeping the lights on for you, to make sure that we're addressing the major risks that could shut your business down. And he kind of ends it there and then moves away off this. And he said, you know what's so nice about this is it really helps the client go, oh, got it. So you're not just shoving a bunch of stuff in front of you. You just hope I buy. You've got strategy and intent behind what you're delivering to me. Okay, that makes a little sense. Now, they might still have questions on, do I really need it? How do I afford it? You know, those are other questions that we're going to get to in part 3 of this webinar series. But what this does is it helps us simplify, just like what Bill was talking about, what they actually need. So you're welcome to use this. Just understand, don't reverse engineer it in the same way. Like put your own flavor into this. So what we're really needing to do, what we're really kind of getting across is this analogy right here. Think about, have you ever seen someone wear an untailored suit? This is the same kid. I found this from his YouTube channel, really cool video. And he was showing the power of a tailored suit. Notice him on the left. He looks sloppy. Now, only thing is his shoes are straight dope on the right side, just white shoes on the left, probably like, like Gators or Crocs or whatever. Anyway, doesn't matter. He looks sloppy. He looks unkempt. He doesn't look well put together. Now you look at him change clothes, and dude, he looks clean. He looks good. He looks sophisticated. And this ultimately is what we're wanting to deliver to the client. We don't want to come in haphazard looking. Here's what haphazard is. Well, what would you like? Well, look at all these things I can do. Well, can I talk to you about the latest EDR statistic of blah, blah, blah? They're like, I'm not listening. That sounds unkempt. That sounds like a lazy, non tailored suit. Come in and say, hey, we know a lot about your business. Last time we met, we spent a lot of time unpacking how you guys operate. And I've identified these are your three critical services, that this is how you make money. These are the big things that you've done. And one of the things we've done is we've designed for you an actual security plan that addresses those major things that's going to keep them up and running. And if something happens, we've got resiliency to be able to deal with it. Now, this isn't cheap, but it's tailored to what you need. Who in here would argue that the suit on the right is cheaper? Nobody. But everybody would argue I paid more for that suit, but it fits me and I look good in it and it's addressed just for me. And this is what we convey to the client. Now, here's the reality. Here's the good news out of this. It's kind of like this. I walk into a men's warehouse and I say, they measure me up. Oh, you're a 44 regular and you're a 36 waist and you're blah, 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 blah. And they measure, 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 measure. And then what they do is they just go grab a coat off the rack and they make a couple tweaks and they come back and they say, look at this, and it fits perfect. That's what you're doing as an MSP. Don't hear me say that when we customize like this, that everyone's a one-off and everyone's a unicorn. It is not that way. It's very much like what Andrew showed here. We pretty much have everybody in one bucket, maybe two, and then I might, if you're regulated, have a couple extra things. I'm grabbing the coat off the rack, so to speak. Does this make sense? This is how we start approaching it. If you let the client truly make you this bespoke experience where everyone gets a perfectly custom suit and building it from scratch, you'll never be profitable. It's just not going to work that way. All right. So let's kind of talk through what some of those drivers can be. One of those drivers can be cybersecurity insurance. I spent a ton of time doing this. I spent a ton of time with Fifth Wall. They're now called Yukon. And there's others that are out there too, like Beltex is amazing. There's a lot of great cybersecurity insurance companies that love MSPs and work with them. And one of the things that they've done is they've really started to identify here are some of the major things you have to meet. So, like where I would really start to think about when you're building your matrix, you're building your must haves. Remember, I said one of the key ingredients is what is required? Well, to me, Bill, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to offer services that are not insurable. I wouldn't want to be able to go to a client and say, hey, here's all the things you can have, but I'm not going to require you to have this one thing that cybersecurity insurance requires. Why? Because it puts me in a very poorly defensible position. I could just imagine in litigation, even though I'm not the one that clicked on the malware and they're the ones that clicked on the malware. I don't want to have to be sitting across from another lawyer that says, you're the security expert, you sold the services. Why did you not give them the best in breed thing that would be cybersecurity insurance eligible? Why would you do that? I don't want to be in that position. I want to be in the position that's defensible that says we gave you the best thing that we know that you needed. That is defensible for that's up to them whether they get cyber insurance or not. But I'm not going to offer you a shoddy solution. Bill, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the three key words you should always keep in the back of your head are, well, Your Honor. So, right, you do have to present, you want to be able to make sure that um, you are putting up a position where you can be defensible, right? That you can show defensibility, you can show that you did all the right things in all the right places. That goes back to a couple slides ago about identifying your gaps on a framework, using that framework to fill in those goals and gaps in the way that is most appropriate. And then here's one of the challenges though, and I think a lot of people might find helpful is there's the cybersecurity, cyber insurance must-haves, and then there is security frameworks, and those two don't talk to each other. They don't actually mesh up. And so I think like a mapping process of how do I take what I'm currently doing and ensuring that those things also overlay with cyber insurance to make sure that I am actually doing all of the right things. And when it does come down to it, if I do have to say, well, Your Honor, then I'm in a really good defensible position.
Yep. Well said. Exactly well said. So let's answer the question just came into chat. How in the heck do I get my client to share their cybersecurity information when they're hesitant, right? Well, and I'm not saying the person asking this question is doing this. I'm not saying this, but what we don't want to do is just say, give me your cyber insurance policy, bro. Of course they're gonna be like, why would I need it? All that. So what I would do is I'd come in and say, hey, one of the things we're responsible for is not just managing your IT and your cybersecurity, but making sure that you're in alignment with what your cybersecurity insurance requires. And you indicated that you have cybersecurity insurance. One of the things we want to make sure is that we're helping you meet that demand. Because God forbid, and I can actually share examples of this if folks want to see it later, is we have seen incidents where a client says, I have the requirements, come to find out they don't, and then the claim gets repealed and pulled back. That does happen. And so, Miss Client, one of the things we want to do is we have an NDA, and I need to make sure that you're meeting those requirements. So if they want to like black out some things with the marker, it's just fine. But I will tell you this, having seen a lot of policies, there's really nothing that's private information in those policies. I mean, minus what they pay. So you could just start at the COI level as certificate of insurance. You could start there, but I'd really move into that motion. This is more for us to talk about than we have time today. We could probably bring someone on like Dustin Bolander from Beltex. If y'all want, let us know in the comments. We can queue that up for the future to bring someone in to talk about this. But I would just say, don't shy away from them. Help them understand it's not really confidential information in that, and really help them understand my job is to make sure you're mapping up to those requirements, because if you're not, bad things would happen, right? So that's kind of what I would do. That's how I'd handle it. So say all that to say, these right here are kind of the six big ones. I'm not saying it's the six only. I'm just saying it's six of the big ones. And you might see some carriers require others, but these are kind of like the minimum standards. And so this is why I want you to understand there's a defensible position, right? But let's talk about how you make money for a second. Let's get a little bit more into the stack for a minute. So here's how you make money as an MSP. These are the ways. So you're going to make money in one or more of these ways. So if it's one-time labor, and don't hear me say, like, I think there's been far too much of a zeitgeist in the industry that's like, oh, it should only all be managed service. No, there's still need for us to have project revenue. Project revenue is coming out more and more important. I think project revenue is one of the major drivers in the next 10 years for MSPs. But you still may have one-time labor in certain cases. I'll give you an example. Let's say you just bring a new MSP or new client on, but they're not fully wrapped into your managed service. They're going to be time and materials until they get their shields up, until they get to a known state of good with you, right? That's a story for another day. But I've seen MSPs that are like, welcome to my MSP. You just start paying me immediately at this hourly rate. All of a sudden you find out they've already had an incident once you put your shields up, and now you're stuck by your MSA burning tens, if not hundreds of hours in that incident that you didn't cause, that you weren't the originator for. I've seen it happen. So we got to be careful of these things. And so it might be one-time labor. So you see how this works, hour time bill rate. If it's product, you're going to see the cost of it times the markup. If it's the software, you're going to have a margins bundle. I'm not speaking to things that you don't know. I'm just making sure you understand these are the mechanics that go into how we offer. And so what you have to think about is not just the cost that comes into this, but what are those margins required to make sure that we're effective and we're profitable. And to Bill's point earlier, we have to understand one of the most important costs that goes into this is our human capital, because our people are not only the most expensive part on the P&L, but two, they can be the most unpredictable, because we think something will take 30 minutes of time. It actually takes us 4 hours to solve it. Oh man, we've burned 8 times more than what we thought we were going to into our margin, right? And so these are things we really have to think about as we're moving forward into how we deliver our services. Bill, anything else stick out to you here?
No, I think one of the key things is making sure that we are also constantly going back and evaluating, at least on a quarterly basis, uh, how how profitable are each one of our particular managed service contracts, right? Because we do having human capital being a huge expense in all of this. If we're burning a lot more labor than we anticipated, we may find out, and a lot of people do find out way too late, that a lot of those contracts end up underwater. And so then some adjustment has to be had, whether that is in training or technology or process or whatever that is. Or sometimes the customers are just a bit too much, and our rates are a bit too low for what we expected. But yeah, I think to kind of add all of this is like have all of this, which you're all very familiar with, but also make sure that you're going back to evaluate this against your contracts, kind of quarterly and find out, where are contracts doing really, really well and then where are contracts underwater. Wes, what would you say the like a good profit margin to shoot for in a managed services agreement, right? When it's all said and done at the end of the year, what percentage would you say a profit we should be at to be
You know,
healthy?
if you look at it from an EBITDA perspective, and I'm just going to kind of parrot what my friends say that know much more about this than I do, whether it comes from service leadership benchmarks, whether it comes from a lot of people that do M&A for like, if you want to be an attractive MSP to sell one day, you need to be 20 to 30 points, somewhere in that 20 to 30 points on EBITDA. 30 is pretty high. But somewhere if you're 10 to 15, we're a little low. And so we got to pick up the efficiency. And how do we drive to that? We become more efficient. We do more with our tools. We have more automation. We have better trained, highly sophisticated staff. A lot of these kind of things drive into this. And there's nothing wrong with having lower EBITDA while we're building our MSP and we're growth mode. No problems. But at some point, you have to say we really got to be at that 20 points or so on EBITDA to really be what is considered a profitable MSP, right? And that's another thing. If y'all ever want, maybe we can bring someone in to talk more about that stuff on these webinars, right? We can go a lot of different directions in what we talk through, but that's really kind of where we want to be. And so I'm going to show you, to Bill's point, I'm going to show you before I click to the next slide. Please don't take what I'm going to show you as gospel. What I'm about to show you is just generalities, and this can change based on what region you're in. It can change based on your maturity. It can be what industries you typically work with. So now that I've kind of caveated all that, this is the way a lot of times pricing will work. It's going to be some kind of core service offer. And notice that I'm not giving you Wes's core offering. Like you saw way back over here, I'll go over to it. You saw Andrew's. This is how Andrew does it, right? I'm not saying do just what Andrew said without thinking. I'm saying put your own brain power into it, but you're going to come up with a core offering that's going to have all your non-negotiables, all the controls, security, IT, all the stuff that you can't live without, they can't live without. You're going to make sure that you've done the reverse margins here. You understand the margins, you understand how this works, you understand your cost mechanics, and then you're going to end up at a seat price. And that seat price might be 150, might be 175. I've seen some MSPs much higher than that, and they love to brag about it. So I'm not saying that 175 is too high. I'm not saying 175 is too low. I'm just saying in general, most MSPs that are offering good services are going to fall somewhere in that ratio of 150, 175. Now you might be way under that. And you think I'm crazy to say that. Or maybe you're new. Maybe you only work in Western Kentucky, where I'm from, and it's just different. Okay, I totally understand that, right? So I'm not saying this is gospel. I'm just giving you a frame of reference, right? And then what a lot of times an MSP will do is they'll say, hey, we got some other things that are going to be necessary. Maybe this maps you into cybersecurity readiness. Maybe this is dealing with the compliance that you have to meet, like FTC safeguards or something like that. And that might cost more. It might be 175 to 200. I've seen some MSPs that do a lot of CMMC. You probably heard of CMMC. Well, there's a lot of work that goes into that. You might see them be at 300, 400 a seat because of the work that goes in to be ready for that. So again, this is not gospel. This is just me helping you understand that might be where you're at. And then a lot of times MSPs will have some kind of strategic overlay where they say, you know what? We also can offer this VCIO component where we're doing road mapping, we're doing all this kind of stuff, and we're bringing some of that in. And that might come into this, and that might be a little bit higher even still. And so you see MSPs have a lot of ways of doing this. They might just wrap everything all together and say, we only offer one service, and it's all of this together, and we're 250 a seat. You might see some that offer core and then try to upsell into secure when they know they need it. You might see some that only offer both of these together, and then strategic is an upsell, right? So I'm not telling you how to do it. There's room for you to figure out how to do this. There's room for you to figure out your price mechanics, but just know the inputs and the outputs. The inputs are right here, and the outputs are at some point, I've got to be able to demonstrate that I'm somewhere in that 15 to 30 points in EBITDA that I'm ahead. I have to. Otherwise, I'm not running a profitable business. So now you understand some of the work that comes into this. And I know we all want to come back to this and say, oh, well, why can't someone just tell me exactly what to do and say and be a robot? It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Bill, anything else that sticks out to you? You talk to hundreds of MSPs.
Yeah, well, let me ask this question. How many folks have a single package that they offer, and then how many people have whatever their version of bronze, silver, and gold is? So you pop that in the chat. So We have 3 tiers, single package. Yeah, I mean, again, this is not a one size fits all. And ultimately, what you want to be able to do is put together the core building blocks of whatever your service offerings are going to be. It's like, we go back to the tailored suit, right? I grab a jacket, I have pants, there's a shirt, there's a tie. Now the colors and the different embellishments and all the stuff like that that might be on it, those are the things that we can kind of work with. But at the end of the day, getting your core building blocks together and then finding out which one of these processes is the best for me. Am I a single tier, a single service, single plan operator, or am I a multi-tier operator? And a lot of that's going to be driven by the types of customers that you take on, right? Are you going to take on customers that have like specific types of regulations, HIPAA, PCI, CMMC, FedRAMP, all the stuff like that? Or do I stick with my general meat and potatoes? I do stores and, clinics and, small businesses and things like that. Those will ultimately help determine, what it is that you're going to offer.
Yep. Well said. Well said. So I hope everyone was also reading through the comments. I love where the comments are going. This is great for us. Just know there's lots of ways to skin the cat, but there are some wrong ways to skin the cat too, right? And just understand that. So when we get to the security stack, it's fine to have three offerings, three core offerings. If I'm running an MSP today, I'm going to want to go for two. I'm going to want my basics that includes all the security things that cyber insurance enabled. I'm going to go for that. And then I'm going to have a strategic overlay that might be, goes up to that 250 a seat mark, 300 a seat mark. So I might have that when it's necessary. And the reason for that is, for me personally, is two reasons. One, when you offer three options, people tend to buy in the middle. That's just a knee-jerk reaction. So if it's designed to say, well, I just want them to buy in the middle every time, okay, I get it. That's actually a buyer's philosophy that can work well. That's fine. But one of the things I would say is, why would we even offer the low tier package, right? If we know that that's not what they need and it's terrible, right? So for me, that's where I fall out on it. But I love this. When's the last time you went to a fast food place and you ordered a burger and they say this to you? You want fries with that, right? Like, it's just the assumption. You don't go and buy a burger and don't get fries. They're going to look at you weird. They're going to be like, what kind of weirdo masochist is coming in buying a hamburger and no drink and no fries? So we feel like we have to buy the value meal. We even call it the value meal because I saved some money. No, I just spent more money because I got the fries that are like the cheapest thing and the soda that's the cheapest thing for them to make. It's a markup thing, right? And I actually think we can take a lesson from that. I think we can really start. It might make sense for us to separate core and maybe security. That's fine if you have those two kind of packages like that. But I would really start with that assumption of like, you want the right thing, right? Like, that's the assumption. Just like you want fries with this. So just understand that. And there's many analogies to this, right? Could you imagine buying a car today with no seatbelts, no airbags, with no rear view camera, with no lane departure? No one in the right mind would buy an insecure car today. So why are we offering insecure services that don't offer what they need? So you see how this kind of works is, I am a big believer in, I don't make them feel bad. It's the assumption of like, we're going to do the right thing here. Like, why would we even consider that? We wouldn't. It's not even on the table. So I think that's a helpful way to go. And Bill, I want you to help me with this one on pitfalls. So first of all, forgive me for the graphic. Anytime I see pitfall, I got to go to the game is so fun. I'm a child of the 80s, so it is what it is. If you have no idea what I'm looking at because you're like a young millennial or you're like a gen anything after that, sorry, not sorry. You missed a great game. But what I am going to say here is, there's nothing wrong with optional add-ins, but understand, if our normal mechanic is the optional add-ins, we're in trouble, because they're going to say, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. And who's making the calls? You or them, right? So don't hear me say don't have optionals. You might need them, but just make sure that sometimes we use them and it's this crutch because we're afraid to talk to the client about the hard things. And so we have this $250 seat thing, and I know they're never going to buy it because I'm terrified to even say it. And they say, oh, we've got these optionals. Choose what you'd like. Well, cool. I'd like none of them. Thank you very much. And then I'll just blame you and sue you when the incident happens. That's how it goes down, right? But also, if you start custom quoting everything, you're talking about inconsistency galore. Look, your service team needs consistency. Your service team needs everything to be operating in a similar fashion. You will not be an efficient MSP if 5 clients have this, 2 clients have that, 3 have it configured this way, 18 have it configured that way. That is not scalable. It is just not scalable. You can't train on that. You can't teach on that. You can't automate on that. It is a nightmare. So be careful about that. Also, just discounting instead of adding value. Just diving right in. Well, we can cut 30% off of that. Cool. Well, I just caught that much out of my margins. Is that really, can we really survive that, right? Why do we mark it up? So I'm not saying don't ever discount. I'm just saying understand what you're doing if you're just knee jerking into that. And lastly, trying to sell security instead of making it just comprehensively part of the platform. I don't buy a car because of the airbag value. I know the car has airbags, right? And I'm buying the car because I like it. It's the right kind for me, and the right speed, and the right all this stuff, right? That's how we're offering things. Stop just going to the individual things that we're trying. Oh, we have best in breed EDR. They don't care. Bill, what else? There's some common pitfalls. What else you want to add into that?
Yeah, I love that one. We have best in breed EDR. You're right. They do not care whatsoever. Half of them have no idea what you're talking about. I think, yeah, building out your packages and bundling together is really, really important. It's a lot harder for customers to pick things apart when it comes in a bundle. Like this is our security package, our security offering. That contains what we need and what we feel is appropriate to give you the appropriate level of security. It gives them a lot less to argue about, and ultimately it allows us to gain some flexibility in how we're delivering security. So like I mentioned this earlier, something I hear a lot is that, oh, well, I have to get my customer to buy that because apparently my security package didn't have that particular area of security covered. So now I have to buy this other tool. Now I have to go back to my customers. I've got to increase everybody's prices. So that's where I like having this line itemed idea, even when you build your own bundles, is like you have to understand your overall tool cost for what it takes to deliver that package of security. But at the end of the day, you want to build in some buffer room in there because security doesn't stay static, right? It moves, it evolves. The threats that are out there also evolve. And so we need to have some flexibility in what it is that we're delivering and a little bit of buffer room in there so that when I have to introduce another tool or take a particular tool out and add something that might be a little bit more expensive, I have the buffer room and I'm not so close and razor thin on my margins that I have to go back to every client and ask them for, I don't want to say handout, Wes, but it kind of like you're like, please, sir, I need to add this, sir. We didn't do privilege management, sir. And so, it's not a good look when you have to go back to the
Yeah.
client when you're putting your packages together, you have to have your profitability, but ultimately you have to have some room in there that you may need to adjust what is in,
Yeah.
either how you deliver it, the tools you're using, or the people you're doing that delivery, and make some, you have the ability, you don't always have to go back and ask for the handout because that's not a good look either.
Yep. Yep. You nailed it. You nailed it. You know, the thing I just learned today is this guy has a dope mullet. I never really recognized that until now. But it's pretty amazing. Um,
I love that game, man.
it's a great game.
It's incredible.
It's a great game. All right, we got 2 minutes. So I'm going to speed run through some of this. Just understand that you're pricing for maturity, not survival, right? You're a real professional here. Don't let people take advantage of you. Bill just really already spoke to all of this, understanding that they have to have room for inflation, for changes. You understand that you can raise prices. There's nothing wrong with that. Also, stick to your guns. I find MSPs all the time because we're nice folks and we care about people. We just want to help. Sometimes it's tough, right? And a client balks and crosses their arms. They're paying for this, blah, 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 blah. And we're okay. Man, we got to understand we're the professionals, not them. If I go to a doctor and I command to the doctor how he's going to treat my knee, I got a bad doctor. A good doctor is going to say, sit down, shut up. I'm going to run through what you need. Just chill. It's what you paid me for. It's just, I got it. Right. And that's how we need to be. We need to understand how to handle those major price hurdles. We're going to cover that in episode 3 of this 3-part series that Bill and I are doing. So stay tuned and come back for it. And we'll come back to this. And lastly, look, this doesn't happen overnight. Understand that we can't just walk into a client's office and say, Wes said I got to be at 125, 175, and therefore pay me. Understand this takes time for the client. They have to build a budget for it. Sometimes you might come to them and say, what are the 3 major things? These are the 3 major things that we need to be working on. Can we do it now, or does this need to wait a month or two? Understand the client doesn't always have the cash flow just to magically do what you want them and need them to do. Okay, so we're gonna stop there. If you would like to learn more about CyberFox, you can do that. First of all, part 2 will be coming up. We'll be emailing all of you on this list. So you can come back to this and Bill's going to dive into a strategy that makes sense. And if you'd like to learn more about us, you can just hit up cyberfox.com. If you want to see what we do and how we make security awesome and how we truly help MSPs in their journey, pop that QR code or just go to cyberfox.com. We would love to have a conversation with you. Bill, appreciate you joining so much. It was super fun, and I think we will cut it here for sake of time. Thank you all for joining. Let us know what questions you have. We'll see you back for episode 2 and then episode 3 after that, and we'll see y'all later. And thanks for all the kind words, y'all. You're amazing.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you.